Hey my beautifuls, doing a few quick videos today on working in Kajabi pages. I wanted to be able to share with you some tips on the basics on how to work within Kajabi pages, because we do seem to find that people get hung up on how to do certain things. So let's dive in. But first, in case we haven't met, I'm Penny from Penny in Your Pocket, and I'm really glad you're here. So first up, what I want to do in this video is talk you through the different areas within a page. Okay, so the first thing we can see is we have sections and we have settings. Fairly self-explanatory. Sections, we add, and this is how we build the page. By adding in sections, we get lots of different options, and you can go and choose any of these sections, and then within the section it will normally add in a couple of blocks for you that you can then work with as well. Okay, so we have sections. We have the sections that run down here, and then within each section, we have what is called blocks. So if we hover over a section, we can see that we have these little blue lines that appear, like the dotted lines. So every section that we hover over will show us the top, and it will also show us the bottom. So we can see, if we move on further down, this white one here, we can see we have the blue lines at the top, and then we also have the blue lines at the bottom, and then so on. So for every section I hover over, it clearly shows me this is one section. If I click in it, it'll say, hey, this is the resources section. Okay, same with if I click in this section up here, it says this is the hero intro desktop. So you kind of can't ever really get lost in terms of, wait, where am I working? Because you can always go and click in the section, and then it will tell you what section that is. So another top tip for you is, when you do create these sections, if you know that you're going to come back and have to work in them, like maybe you're creating a long page and there's lots of different sections in there, it's actually really helpful to click on the three dots next to the section and name it something that you'll know what it is that you're putting in there. And that way it makes it really easy for you, is like when you're scanning down here going, oh, you know what? No, I don't want the opt-in down there. I want to move it up here. So that's another top tip for you. Always go and try and name the sections if you can. So the other part to pages is we have settings. Again, this is fairly self-explanatory. You can click through into each of these and then set them up as needed, all right? But going back to our sections and then the blocks within the section, when we click inside it, we can see this one. There's a few components that make up all sections in your page. There's background, desktop layout, mobile layout, and time reveal. So the ones that you're going to be using most of the time would be the background. So background, you decide, do I want to put an image, a video, or am I not having a background? And then you would choose accordingly, upload the items that you need to fill that space, move on down and have a look at the other settings that you have options for. So this one in this hero, I currently have this set to what we call like a scroller or a parallax effect. And how we get that is by ticking the fixed background image. If I don't want that, I untick it, I'll hit save, and yes, you did see the whole background image changes. Okay, so and currently you also then get to choose the background image position. Currently I have mine set as the bottom. So if we sort of redo this, we can see every time I click it, it'll just change the focus of the image. So that's something else to remember when you are setting your images as a background in a hero. It's really important to work out, where do you want the focal point of the image? Like, what is going to impact maybe any text blocks that you have in there, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to put this to center for now, and I'm going to go back to having it set to my fixed background image so that we get this nice scroll over effect. The other options you have around, well, you have the background color, so you can have this as opaque, you can have it as a little bit transparent, you can have it a lighter or a darker color, and depending on what you choose. So if you can imagine that Kajabi has an invisible line that runs across halfway through this color block, okay, or this color wheel, it's a color square, whatever you want to call it, it has this invisible line. So if we were to move the point and we move it up to the top, and we say, you know what, we want to actually make it whiter, like we want to put like a white, you notice that our text automatically changed as well. So this is somewhere else. Sometimes people get a little bit hung up here, is if they choose a color that's very close to like the middle, Kajabi can get a little bit confused and decide, oh, I think that's really close to this, so I'm going to throw in white. But you may decide, no, I actually want black. So you always have to remember that it's Kajabi's controlling the color of your text blocks based on the color that you choose for your background color, regardless of whether it's transparent or opaque. So say if we were to make this completely transparent, okay, we can see here that it's still white, but it doesn't matter. Like, even though I can sort of bring this down here, so it's supposedly black, even though it's not actually changing the color, Kajabi's going, well, hang on a minute, you've gone below that line. So I'm going to make it that color. But if I go to the top, you can see Kajabi automatically changes it to the black. So that's just something else to remember, like a little tip for you. Just be aware that when you are working with background colors, that's why the color of your text may change, okay? So the only other options we have when we're working in sections is the desktop section padding. Now, what do we mean by padding? Really, another word for that is just spacing. And how does it work? Think of the padding. It basically takes the space from the top of the section to the very first block that you have in there. And again, the blocks themselves also have spacing and padding inside. So it's going to take it, it's counting it to the border or the outline of that block. Obviously, it's not going to take it to, you know, the first line of text because it's within a block. So it'll say, okay, we're going to do 200 pixels from the top to the first block. So that's how it works out the padding, in case you wanted to know that. Vertical alignment. The vertical alignment really comes into play when you have something like this and you have, say, 3 blocks in a row and you want them all neatened up. You want them all to be aligned at the top. So that's what that vertical alignment stands for. It's the vertical alignment has to do with the blocks inside. Same with the horizontal alignment. So the horizontal alignment affects, once again, the blocks that you have within the section. So say you just had a small, like, 1 block and you decided you wanted, like, the image that you had, like, there was more towards the right, so you wanted to have the text on the left. Well, this is where you go and make those adjustments, okay? So equal height blocks, that also affects this one down here. So when you have a group of blocks all in a row, you can use the equal height blocks toggle and turn it on, and it will stretch out each of those blocks so that they are all the same size. Just neatens it all up. Do you want to make the section full width? Now, what happens when we click this is Kajabi removes any container boundary that we had that was containing the blocks. So essentially, when we don't have this on, there's like an invisible container that sits in here, and it controls how far the blocks within our section are going to sit, like how far flush up against the left and the right hand side walls, if that makes sense. So if we say we want it to be full width, it actually removes that container. It expands it all the way to the ends, and then that means that any blocks that you have inside there also expand. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're using that, it does actually then make the blocks themselves also much wider. So that's something to keep in mind. And then making a section full height, if we click on this, it literally just expands the viewport, what you see on the screen, and this will be different for every single person because it's dependent on the screen size that the person is actually viewing your site on. But that is what that means, to view it as full height. Mobile layout, you may decide that the layout that you've just created in this section is going to look great on desktops and maybe iPads, but it's going to look crap on mobile. So you have the option to hide it and then go and create your own separate mobile section as well. All right, so that's what that means. And then same thing, you can control the padding for the mobile section. So if I was to drop down into mobile, we can see that we have like a completely different look for the mobile, and it's because I've hidden this section and used another one in here, which we can see here. So here is my hero for my mobile, but if I pop into my desktop, we can see that it's hidden on the desktop. So that's another trick that you can do as well. If you're unsure of what things are going to look like between the different various screen sizes, we can control that for mobile and desktop. Alrighty, so I'm going to leave this video here. That was just a brief walkthrough on how to work in sections, how to work in blocks. Obviously, when we're in a section, if you want to go and add a block, you would click add content, you choose your block and then position it within that section of where you want it to go. So we've discussed padding for the sections, and the next video we're going to do is we're going to actually have a look inside the blocks and how we work with those.